Hello and welcome. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Natasha Jog. On a day that the battle within Infosys was played out in the public domain, we're asking old guard versus new bosses. Will boardroom battles shake up India's top companies? Well, Infosys, of course, considered by many as the gold standard, really, when it comes to corporate governance and management, which is why when its founder, especially Narayana Murthy, who put India on the world's software and information technology map, talk about hush money in the company they set up, you know it's serious. The board, who the founders are taking on, denies any irregularities. They've put their weight behind Infosys CEO Vishal Sikka. He's the company's first non-founder CEO, brought in and handpicked, in fact, by Narayana Murthy himself in 2014. Many are asking this evening also if this will go the Ratan Tata Cyrus Mistry way. Well, let me introduce my panel to you this evening. I'm joined by Mohandas Pai. He's been formerly on the board of Infosys. Also, Mr. Balakrishnan has been the ex-CFO of Infosys. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, independent director with Infosys. Also with me in the studio, M.K. Venu, founding editor, The Wire. I'm also going to be joined by Sriram Subramaniam, founder and managing director in Govern Research Services, which keeps an eye closely on corporate governance issues. Let me start by asking you, Mr. Mohandas Pai, when I spoke to you earlier about, you're saying it's not really the founders versus Vishal Sikka, but increasingly to the public, it's seeming that that is what it's all about.
In corporate India, please tell me, do you know anybody who has been paid 30 months severance to leave a company? Anybody who has been paid 24 crores to leave a company? I don't remember anybody. I've been watching corporate India for the last 35 years. And so, you know, the chairman did not speak the truth when he went before the shareholders except to give bland statement. Until today, they have not given a satisfactory answer. It is not an old matter, like one director said. It is a matter which has been simmering. And if you look at the report of the audit committee and the nomination committee, on page 84 of the 2016 report, they should have spoken about the CFO and the large compensation made to him. And after the founders raised the issue in May of 2016, soon thereafter, 2 installments, I think, were paid and the money was stopped. Till today, they have not come back and said what happened to an inquiry, what are the conclusions, are they going to pay or not, why it was paid. No explanation has been given.
Right, no explanation has been given, and that severance pay, of course, to David Kennedy and Rajiv Bansal now seem to be at the heart of this big divide and this very public rift. Many are asking, Mr. Pai, if this is going to go the way the battle at Tata Sons went.
I don't think this matters about Vishal Sikka, because Narayana Murthy has gone on TV and said this got nothing to do with Vishal Sikka. He said Vishal Sikka is doing a decent job, though there are some decisions which need to be relooked. This is not about the management of the company. This is about the board governance and board effectiveness. So there is no parallel between the two. There is no parallel between the two. Nobody is trying to come back to the company. Let us remember one thing. Infosys is an extraordinary company where the founders walked away in the prime of their life, leaving a company to be run by others. They walked away. They did it. Okay, we must respect them. They still hold 13% in the company. They are major shareholders. And as major shareholders, they have a right to raise governance issues. They raise government issues, the company has to respond. And what they did in the press release yesterday from the board was totally wrong. I mean, it's wrong because they must say, got a letter, we are going to have a dialogue with them to sort out issues. That has been the right thing to do. Why are they defending something, some wrong decisions have been taken? It shows disdain. It shows disdain for shareholders. And it says that we are appointing a lawyer to represent us. I mean, the shareholders appointed the board. The lawyers didn't appoint the board. And the board has to talk to the shareholders directly. And these are not small shareholders. These are the founders of the company and they own 13%. If you're not willing to talk to people who are 13% on governance matters, this is not inside information. This is not about company performance, about company strategy. This is about governance. And if you're not willing to talk to them directly about governance, and say you want a board, I mean, what are you planning? What are you doing in the job? And this company belongs to shareholders. You have to respond.
Right. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, ma'am, you've heard all that Mr. Pai told me just a short while back. Ma'am, the biggest the point here being made now, which we've heard Narayana Murthy also talk about earlier today, is this charge of hush money. That really sounds serious, ma'am, saying that Rajiv Bansal knew too much. He knew things, that he had something on Infosys, which is why he was paid off to be quiet.
I think that's a very, very harsh adjective to use. I would like to basically say that, look, management basically used the General Counsel to effect these severance packages, both with Mr. Bansal and with David Kennedy. Both these severance packages have been worked out under very complex set of circumstances. And I think as far as the board is concerned, the management has justified why such a large, severance package was drawn up for both these gentlemen, and we have basically approved it. First and foremost, I don't think these are about governance issues, because governance is about following due process.
Right.
As far as anything to do with management issues are concerned, they need to be responsible for it, and they need to bring it to the board for approval, such as what has happened in this particular case.
Right.
I would also like to comment on what Mr. Mohandas Pai said. I completely agree that the founders are a very important set of shareholders, and I do believe that there should be alignment between the board and the shareholders.
Right.
And I believe that this is what we are working towards. It is unfortunate that these issues have been brought to the fore. I completely agree there was no need to bring it into the public.
Right.
But it has happened for a various set of reasons which I'm not aware of. But I personally believe that the reason why the board has engaged with a legal firm is so that they can actually create an official communication channel with the promoters, so that we may share more information legally
Right.
and legitimately, so that we can actually resolve amicably all these concerns and issues
Okay.
that the promoters have raised.
Sure.
And I, for one, also agree with
Go ahead, make your point.
Mohandas Pai that this is an iconic company,
Absolutely.
set up by these iconic founders, and we have the utmost respect for them.
Which is why, of course, there is so much at stake, not just for the company, but just all of us here in India watching this space so closely. Venu, I'd like to ask you, made the point just a short while back that, the board has also decided in its wisdom that they need to now take a look at this package. They did sign off on it, but after all these concerns being raised, especially in the last couple of weeks being raised very publicly, they're saying, okay, hold on, let's look into it. What does that say?
See, to begin with, I'd like to say that Tatas and Infosys are apples and oranges,
Okay.
right? The problem there was completely different, and as Mohandas Pai rightly said, Ratan Tata had already served till 75, and there was much more eagerness on the part of Ratan Tata to get back control, which is not the case here.
But you can understand why the parallel.
Yeah,
because it's happening so
but there's
soon.
definitely one problem here, which both Kiran and Mohandas have referred to. I think at some point, the communication between the board and which includes Sikka and the board chairman and the founding members, which is Narayana Murthy, Nilekani,
Right.
Shibulal, and Mohandas.
Chris, right.
There was some communication gap which had started surfacing much earlier,
I see.
because Mr. Narayana Murthy was abstaining from several big resolutions, including the one which
Signed off on this.
Yeah, the severance package,
Right.
as well as the restricted ESOPs for Mr. Sikka linked to his performance. Of course, the board has supported that.
Right.
Also, getting former Minister of State for Finance Jayant Sinha's wife on the board, that had also caused some dissonance between the board and the founding members.
Right, we're told it's been mentioned in one of the letters that has
so
been
I
written.
feel that
Right.
I feel that there's a need to restore communication and confidence between the shareholders and the board. That's important. And
Kiran Shaw, I'll just get her in. Kiran Shaw, ma'am, you raised the point about communication. Now you're talking about this legal firm, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, that has been roped in to do just that, to communicate. But at the same time, Mohandas Pai told me earlier that there was really no need for it. You just need to open up the channels. Mr. Shashashai perhaps needs to talk to Narayana Murthy directly, pick up the phone or whatever way, talk to him directly. Why do you need to go through a legal firm? Why do you need to go through any middleman? That was one of the points that they were raising.
You know, I think you must understand when we talk about corporate governance, it is also very important for us to understand the board also has fiduciary responsibilities in terms of what information we can share with various stakeholders. And I think therefore we wanted a firm like Amarchand Mangaldas to guide us into what we can share and what we can't. I think it's very important to have those communication channels, and all that we are doing is making it formal and making it a very, very legitimate channel.
There's another issue, Natasha, on which there seems to be lack of communication. Some of the founding members want Infosys to buy back their shares because Infosys is sitting on some nearly 40,000 crores of reserves. And globally, you've seen, companies like Accenture and IBM, they have been buying back shares from their...
Those are the examples that Mr. Pai has also been quoting.
So Mr. Sikka actually informally had even committed to studying whether buybacks could be done. Otherwise, the way Infosys is growing, it's a very linear growth path. So I don't think they have any other investment avenue. So why should those reserves be sitting there earning some 5-6%?
But maybe I should just interject here and say that this view of yours, which you just mentioned about share buyback, has not been shared by all the promoters. There are some who want it.
There are some who want.
No,
we
Mr.
know that
Pai,
there are some who want.
Mr. Pai has expressed.
And
Mr. Balakrishnan has expressed.
That's right.
View.
Those two at least.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But others don't.
Absolutely. That's not across the board, but I didn't get to talk to Mr. Pai about that, but I did ask him if any of this was also to do with the style of functioning of Mr. Sikka. Really, he came from a world of technology, someone who spent so many years in the West, in America in particular, and how much of this, I asked him, had to do with the acquisitions that had been made under Mr. Sikka and also the quality of the acquisitions.
Well, I think there are analysts have questioned the quality of the acquisitions also, particularly some acquisitions where, people known were involved, and they have raised some questions. I don't have the full data because I have not inquired into that. But the board should have asked all these questions before agreeing to the acquisition. And I really don't know whether the CFO signed off on the acquisition. And I don't know whether the acquisitions are working out, and the board has to answer all these questions. Because the board's responsibility to approve the acquisitions. Management can propose, but the board has to do that.
Right. Yes, ma'am, you want to make a point?
I just want to answer by saying I think Mr. Mohandas Pai thinks very poorly of the board. I can assure you that the board is not as irresponsible as he makes us out to be. I think we have asked the right questions about these acquisitions. I think some of the aspersions and allegations made are incorrect. And I think, as you will agree, many of these acquisitions are a part of a strategy. They have a gestational phase. And I think you will see how these acquisitions play out.
Right, fair enough.
And I'm not trying to suggest that... And I'm not trying to suggest that every one of these acquisitions will be stellar successes.
Absolutely.
But I'm very confident that the majority of these acquisitions will deliver value to the organization.
Right.
But would Kiran like
the right motives.
I would like to ask Kiran whether the severance package it's stalled. So is there an inquiry into it? Is the remaining payment going to be made, or what's the status of the severance package?